Hi, I'm John Helge,
And I'm Nate Markham.
and we're here today bringing you the Politics is Local podcast. We're going to be talking about politics and issues of importance in Manistee County. We hope you join us, and we hope you like what we do. You know, that's the important thing. We want people to know that, we're genuinely caring about them and what's going on in our community. And everything that affects it has something to do somewhere with what's going on either in Washington, in Lansing, up at the courthouse here, off Maple Street, at the city hall, at your township hall, but all of that affects us every day.
Yeah.
So as much as we like to say we don't like talking about politics, it affects us every day.
Yeah.
So.
And what we need to encourage is for people to get involved because it impacts everybody, but not everybody steps up and tries to take control and make it work for them.
Right.
People just are kind of passive and don't take control. So we need to encourage people to get out there and get involved.
And let people, let these elected officials, these people that we have elected to represent us, we have elected them to work for us. Let them know what you want. None of them, maybe there's one or two that have extrasensory perception, that are able to, mind meld with you. But most people, just need to know. And hopefully, we can make people aware of how to do that, on these podcasts in the future.
They represent the people, and if they don't know what the people want, then what are they supposed to do? So you have to be in communication with your representatives.
Absolutely. So, first of all, there's a great app out there called 5 Calls.
Okay.
Download that to your phone.
What does it do?
It automatically, when you put in your zip code, it gives you the phone numbers for the offices of your U.S. Senator, your U.S. Representative, and it can, go all the way down to your state rep and your state senator.
Okay.
And it also gives you, coaching on scripts and how to ask the question, how to let them know how you feel.
Excellent.
So you don't have to make it up.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
What's that called again?
It's called 5 Calls.
5 Calls.
And you can download it off any of the app stores.
Okay.
So that's useful. And again, believe it or not, our elected officials, their staff people do a great job, of counting how many people are calling and how many people are in favor of or against, some action. So yes, it is not a waste of your time. They do respond. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if they're not responding, that gives you even more reason, to get active and vote them out.
Yeah.
I'm not a big advocate for term limits, because we have the opportunity every 2 years to choose a new U.S. representative, every 2 years to choose a new state representative. Every 4 years, we have the opportunity to choose at least one new U.S. senator. We have the opportunity to choose our governor and, the other folks there. Mm-hmm. So again, what we need to do is just become more educated as voters, understand what's going on. And so again, that's one of the things I hope we can do, Nate, you and I working together on this, having a conversation that hopefully people will, tune into, and we can just help them gain confidence, to become more willing to let people know what they want, what they need, what's important to them.
Yeah. So let's look forward to the upcoming elections in 26. Do you what are some of the elections? Do you know off the top of your head what are we going to be?
Well, and again, I apologize to the folks that might be tuning in right now, because this is 25, and a lot of people that might be tuning into this are trying to figure out how they're going to get through the next week, let alone the next year. It's over 600 days to the next election in November of 26. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that people are more concerned about what's going on right now. What can I do right now? So I'm not evading that question, Nate. I'm just basically saying
I think we need to focus on 26 right now.
Well, we're working on doing that.
Yeah.
I appreciate your concern because yes, if we're going to compete against the incumbents that are out there, especially in the U.S. representative area, and that's right here. We're in Congressional District 2 in the state of Michigan. Congressional District 2, Manistee County is the farthest north and farthest west county in that 19-county district. Now, some people say it's got 20 counties in it, but there's only 2 townships in Midland County that, are, gerrymandered into this district. But
Okay.
by the way, this, the citizens redistricting committee that took over and set these boundaries did a great job, in my opinion, because I think we're more competitive. We're more competitive in every district in the state of Michigan because of the work that the citizens did, and it wasn't gerrymandered by the ruling party in Lansing. So again, is it a challenge? Absolutely. Right now, the incumbent is a Republican. He's been there for a long time.
What's his name?
His name is John Molnar.
Okay.
And John Molnar is not responding to his
How often does
constituents.
John Molinar hold town halls?
Oh, John Molnar has never held
He's never
an
held one?
in-person,
Okay.
open to the public town hall. And kind of sad when you think
Are
about
people asking for it?
it. They're demanding it.
Yeah. I saw town halls filled to the brim with people demanding he show up, and he didn't.
Well, these are interesting because they're what we call empty chair town halls. Nate. And I was at one in Fremont, Michigan on Wednesday night. There were probably 125 people jammed into, a meeting room in their city library. And they wanted, their U.S. representative to hear their concerns. There's a lot of anxiety out there. People are wondering what's going to happen. Everything they're seeing in Washington right now is weighing heavily on these people. The stress that, most people are under in John Molnar's district right now is very high and not in a healthy way. People are concerned about a tremendous amount of things, the chainsaw that's being taken to the programs, agencies, and services that we are accustomed to serving us, serving those in need, okay? These are not waste. Things like Medicaid, not wasteful.
Heck.
Things like Social Security, I paid into since I was 14 years old. That is not wasteful.
My prescriptions just went up from $50 a month to $250 a month.
And I'm sorry for that.
I
mean,
hope I can figure something out, but
yeah, that's, if they were at 50, why did they go to 200 overnight or over, a short period of time?
50 last month, they're $250 this month.
That's certainly unacceptable. And again, when you're talking about taking the FDA, who controls, how we get our, pharmaceuticals and make sure they're safe and effective, and looks over that, and that's being gutted. What's the future hold? So again, our elected officials need to listen to us. And what I'm concerned about is they feel like they're in power and they want to hold on to that power. They're gripping onto that power.
Absolutely.
And, and I think it's important that we as citizens, as voters, rise up and say, no, you're not in power. You work for us. And we will demonstrate to you that you're not in power by voting you out. And so it's our responsibility, though, to find a good, viable candidate, to go up against an incumbent that's got $1.3 million in the bank right now. Isn't that ridiculous? It really is. When you talk about the money in politics, what's happening in Wisconsin right now for what should be a simple state Supreme Court justice election. Elon Musk has dumped over $20 million into that simple state Supreme Court justice election just to prove that he can, move the needle.
He wants to move the needle. He's in
And
control.
what happens with that, Nate, what really happens is if they win, if Elon Musk wins in Wisconsin, he's proving to all the U.S. representatives that they better get in line with what he wants to happen in Washington.
Or they'll primary him.
And he will dump his billions, millions of his billions.
You know what's
of
scary
dollars.
is Elon is doing this in other countries too.
Yes.
He's doing this around the world.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, just this person, who has more money than anyone, should ever have, is utilizing it for his own, aggrandizement. And that's just god awful.
You know what I often think about? Well, how does this happen? It's so the mega wealthy usually don't get involved in politics beyond donating to like super PACs, like your Bill Gates, your Jeff Bezos. They actually kind of divest themselves of politics,
Right.
but that's not a law. That's just our culture. That's just a norm that they abide by. Elon Musk is saying, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm going to involve myself in politics. So they're just breaking from cultural norms.
And what's really sad is we have an unelected, unvetted, immigrant citizen of the United States, taking a wrecking ball, to our federal government right now. And our elected officials are standing by, watching this happen. Some of them are actually applauding. Some of them are saying this is the best thing that's ever happened. And that's really sad because they've abdicated their responsibility to represent the people. And by abdicating that responsibility, they're worthless to us. I'm sorry. And if they're not going to listen to us, if they're not going to take the time and the effort and the courage to face us face to face, eye to eye, and let us know their position and why, and try to justify it at least, then it's ridiculous. Okay? Our form of government is falling apart all around us. Our representative democracy is being dismantled right before our eyes. And, the people that are supposed to be protecting that representative democracy for us, are standing by and letting it happen because they're afraid. Because they're afraid they're going to lose their position of power.
People are afraid for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
They're afraid of getting shot, for God's sakes.
I mean, that's that. I'm sorry. That's just absolutely wrong. Any of us should be concerned with physical violence occurring to any American. That's just wrong.
And we have Republicans saying it's just a fact of life that kids get shot in school and that we need to deal with it.
I had a long conversation with a local mother of two. She was talking about, and her oldest, her son, is going to kindergarten this year. And they went to Walmart to buy school supplies. And, you buy school supplies. You buy a box of crayons. You buy a notebook. They spent $375 on a bulletproof backpack for their kindergartner. I'm sorry. That
doesn't set off alarm bells that something needs to happen.
It blew my mind. I'm sorry. That's just wrong. Now, what does it take? I mean, everybody's saying, don't take the gun. All Democrats, we want to take your guns. No, we don't want to take your guns. Democrats do not want to take your guns. You have every right as an American to own, guns.
In my opinion, it says that they should be regulated right there in the Constitution.
Safely, we're looking for common sense gun safety legislation, which means why not have a background check? Why not undergo training before you are given a gun? We have to do driver's training before we get a driver's license.
If anything else was killing people at this rate, it would be illegal.
Right. But again, common sense, gun safety laws are what we're looking for. We're not looking to take your guns away.
No.
I have no reason, I own a shotgun for bird hunting. Okay? I've always loved doing that. And I remember going deer hunting with my grandfather back many years ago. And when he, I had a nice rifle that he gave me, and he gave me 2 bullets. And I go, Grandpa, this gun will hold 6 bullets. He said, if you need more than 2, you're not hunting with me anymore. Okay? And I believe that. Who needs a 30-round magazine?
Those aren't for killing animals.
No, they're for killing human beings.
Yeah.
And I served in the U.S. Army, and I was a marksman with an M16, and I've seen what an M16 can do. Thank God I never, had to shoot a human being in my service. But I'll tell you right now, there's no reason to have an M16, but people do. Okay, all we ask is you keep it locked up so your kids or grandkids don't kill themselves or somebody else. We ask that you use common sense, when you're using the weapon, and that's all. And part of that gun safety, by the way, is the red flag laws. Somebody that's struggling with mental illness. We need that opportunity to make sure that they don't have access to a gun or a weapon that will kill human beings, including themselves. Those red flag laws, I think, can save a lot of lives, a lot of people who are contemplating suicide. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. So bottom line is, yes, there's a lot of things out there, but we go back to, we need our elected officials at all levels of our government. Our township trustees, they need to listen to the people in the township. Our city hall, our city council people. I think here in Manistee, I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I think they're listening to us.
Let's talk about some ways that people can get involved in local politics. I think, connecting with your county party, especially in Manistee, is a good idea if you want to get plugged into local politics and find out what's going on.
Well, thank you, and again, full disclosure, Nate, right? I'm the chair of the Manistee County Democratic Party, and I'm very proud to be serving in that position. We've got a very strong party of dedicated, engaged individuals, that care deeply about what's going on in Manistee County. And that's a great way to get involved, to learn more, to be educated, become educated. And I will tell you right now, we're not looking just for money. We don't want you just to write a check. We want you to get engaged with us. We want you to come. Our meetings are not boring business meetings. Our meetings are information meetings. Our meetings talk about issues that are important to people that live here in Manistee County.
I think something that's important to mention that people don't realize is that the Manistee County Democrats can pipe you right into running for to be a local candidate.
Yeah.
They have the resources you need to plan a campaign. I can say this from personal experience. So I think that needs to be put out there more, that we can help you run for office if you really want to. We need people.
Absolutely. It's really sad. If you look nationwide, and this is, I'm flabbergasted by this statistic. 75% of the elected positions nationwide, this goes all the way down to the township trustee level, that type of thing. 75% of those are uncontested.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
There's no choice on the ballot. There's no choice. In some cases, there's no one on the ballot.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. So bottom line is, we need more people to get engaged.
Yeah.
We need more people to say, I am willing to serve my community.
Yeah.
And that's one way to do it. And it's using common sense. common sense, I once knew a guy that says there's nothing common about common sense. But honestly, I think we have an abundance of that. Certainly have abundance of that here in Manistee County. And we need to do a better job of giving voters a choice when they go in the voting booth. And we're working hard on that. The Manistee County Democratic Party is working hard on that. You're a beneficiary of that. You're attending right now a training course that's statewide on, how to, help people campaign and get elected.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? How's that going for you?
Well, in my opinion, there's so many resources to run for local office. If you want to, there's no reason you can't. You just have to make a little time, and you have to go out there and utilize the resources you can find. One of those resources for me has been the Rural Summit. Yep. That I'm going to here in a few weeks. I went last year. It's like a weekend local politics retreat, kind of. You go to a hotel with a conference center and breakout rooms, and you have lectures and classes all weekend long. And I found it invaluable to running for local office. In this past election, I ran for county commissioner. Mm-hmm. And it was, like I said, invaluable, and I look forward to doing it again this year.
By the way, shameless plug again, the Rural Summit is going to be held at the Quaidon Casino in Sault Ste. Marie, April 10th through the 12th. And it's going to be an outstanding week. This is the fourth year we've had it, and it gets better every year.
Yeah.
And this year, I'm very excited about the quality of the speakers that we have, mm-hmm. the trainers.
I'm actually on a panel this year.
Absolutely, you should be, because you've been there and done that now. Mm-hmm. And and lessons learned are important. And sharing, what went well, what could have gone better, that's important, Nate. And mm-hmm. I'm really happy to hear that you're on that. But that's part of what's important too, is understanding that it's not. You don't have to know a secret handshake.
Yeah.
To get engaged and involved.
Which I thought was the case before I did this. Yeah. I thought it would be impossible. Never in a million years I would dream it was actually this easy.
Yeah, and you've told me, and I really appreciate it. You were properly supported in your campaigning.
It was easy because I had the support. If I were doing it on my own, would not have been easy.
Right. So again, the folks that are, watching our podcast today, I hope that they're interested, because we've got a committee that's already out searching.
I'm trying to wave a flag for that, and we need those people.
Absolutely. And you talk about getting involved too, and somebody might say, but I'm not really interested right now in running for elected office, but I'd like to get more involved. Well, there's other opportunities that you got through the Manistee County Democratic Party. We have an organization, a committee in the party called our Blue Tigers. Mm-hmm. And Nate, you and I worked last, Wednesday with the Feeding America food truck.
I work with the Blue Tigers all the time.
And the Blue Tigers are there, volunteering. And we're providing and distributing over 9,000 pounds of healthy, nutritious food, to almost 300 food insecure families in Manistee County.
Which could be impacted by cuts to the
Lord
USDA.
have mercy. I just heard, again, our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, has just joined, with other Attorneys General from states to stop, this. They said that they weren't going to continue to buy surplus local farmers' fruits and vegetables through the USDA. And that was going to adversely impact the Feeding America food truck. Yeah. Because Lord knows we know. We were distributing what? Parsnips?
Yeah.
Rutabagas?
Parsnips and rutabagas.
And potatoes. Mm-hmm. And, these are all things that are grown right here.
They're grown locally.
Yeah. And, but the bottom line is that I think it was 1.3 billion with a B that, Elon Musk thought was fraud and waste. Mm-hmm. I'd like Elon Musk to come and look at some of these folks that come through the line when we're handing out the food.
Their waste.
At the food truck. And tell me that that's a waste of money. Mm-hmm. Tell me that they're fraudulent. Okay? And tell them to their face that they're not worth this kind of investment that mm-hmm. they need. These are simply social safety nets that have been developed by a government that actually cares about people. Okay? And it's a safety net that, is there to catch you when you fall.
Yeah.
And we all trip and fall.
And not only that, we live in a society with so much wealth inequality that it's more than when you trip and fall. People depend on it because they're lazy, but because there is nothing else for them. Maybe they're unable to work.
Yeah.
All sorts of reasons.
Nate, and I was just going to get to that. I said, it's a safety net, but it's not a capture net. It's not a net that you're going to be in for the rest of your life.
No.
Okay.
And I've used services and I've never been in them for, it's a short time and they help and then you move on to something better.
That's right. We're not looking for a handout, it's a hand up. Mm-hmm. And that's the point that we need to be focused on. And doing away with these safety net programs and agencies and that type of thing, that's cruel. And I refer to, I'm a big person about alliteration. Mm. You've probably heard my 3 C's of being an effective elected official. And the first one is communicate. You need to communicate across the aisle. You need to talk to others. You need to learn and communicate to understand their positions and see where the threads of similarity may be. And then you need to collaborate. You need to come together for the greater good. And then you need to compromise. Because you've got to end up with a win-win scenario, not a win-lose scenario. And everything right now that's going on in Washington with the current leadership that's there is I win, you lose.
Yeah.
And that makes me a tough person. That makes me a strong leader. And I think that's absolute BS.
It's become a winner-take-all situation.
Yeah.
Might equals right.
So my 3 C's right now that describe our current situation in Washington, D.C. are chaos, corruption, and cruelty. Those 3 do a great job, in my opinion, of describing what's going on in Washington right now. And, we need our equal form of government. We have 3 branches, our co-equal branch, which is the legislative branch, to step up and say, stop this. This is not right. This is wrong. Mm-hmm. And people like John Molnar are not willing to do that.
That's right.
They're afraid. They're cowards. And history will, treat them harshly. But what does that mean to Manistee? What does it mean to Manistee? Well, I'm going to give you one thing that really ticked me off. The Manistee City Tree Commission, we're responsible for all the trees and vegetation that grow on our city land, okay, along our streets. We know that we have beautiful trees here, but a lot of them are, aging and, mature, and they become, we lose trees. We just lost a beautiful big tree, on Spruce Street last week in the high windstorm. Well, we put in for a grant from the EPA, and we were awarded a $224,000 grant to do a complete inventory of every tree on public land in the state.
I was at the commission meeting when they talked about that.
We're going to do this inventory, assess the trees' health, and are they at risk, and then we're going to get some professional guidance on how to have a long-term, urban forestry plan for the city of Manistee.
Well, what happened?
Well, the $224,000 we were told is frozen.
Oh.
It's not gone. It's not gone.
Frozen.
The good news is, again, because of what's going on with our judicial branch, which at least is coming up and saying, slow down, stop, this isn't right, that money has been released. And we have that money now, and we're going forward. But that kind of jerking around doesn't do anybody any good. Okay? How can you plan? How can you have any kind of a strategic master plan, whether you're in business, whether you're in, city government, state government, county government? how can you have it if you can't, count on stability?
Yeah, the stability of the economy completely depends on
Right.
confidence going
Right.
forward. That's a big part of it.
So yeah, so that's just another local example. But again, boy, I like this conversation we're having.
Great. We'll do it again
I
next
hope we
week.
can do it often. I hope folks that are watching us are interested enough to tune in, because boy, we got a lot of stuff here. We're
We only
thinking,
touched on a few things.
Oh my God,
and
we
I'll
didn't
write
even-
more of these too.
we didn't even scratch the surface yet.
No.
But I'm also interested to hear from people. So again, folks know how to contact me. My email address is out in the public domain. My phone number is on the public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Do not hesitate to call.
So is mine.
Yeah, please, let us know what you want to hear about. We're here to do that. And boy, I appreciate your
Thanks,
help
John.
on that, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay? Take care.